Well, hello, children. And I think it's a big honor and privilege for me to be here in your school today at SDPS Youth International Indore. I'm sure you all are very excited to hear me speak, but let me tell you something, I'm a little nervous. So do excuse me if I make any mistakes. Yes, is that a promise? You know, there are two types of people. Those who wait for permission and those who fly anyway. So guess, which type was I? I flew. I didn't wait for any permission. I was 15 when I sat next to my instructor in a tiny glider at Delhi's Safdarjung Airport. A wooden glider, no engine, no autopilot, no noise. Just him and me, solo, to fly alone. I had to wait till I turned 16. In 2 months, when I turned 16, I flew solo for the first time. You know, actually around this time in August, 9th of August, 1979, I flew solo the first time in my life. I had just turned 16. It was just me and my glider, the wind rushing past me, and I was a young girl totally mesmerized by the blue sky. The flight landed in 3 minutes, only 3 minutes. But you know, in that stillness, this girl met the sky. Something changed in me forever. I had dropped the first pebble to form a ripple. And unbeknownst to me, these ripples would travel very, very far. You know what happens when we're in school? You all must have been asked earlier in your school days to write an essay about what you want to be when you grow up. So when I was in class 4, I must have been around 8, 9 years old, I was asked by my class teacher, we were asked in school to write an essay on what we want to be when we grow up. So, and it was an all-girls school. So some girls wrote they wanted to be a teacher, some wrote they wanted to be a doctor, some wrote they wanted to be an engineer, some even wrote air hostess. But you know what I wrote? Pilot. There was laughter all around my class. When my teacher read the essay, she did not laugh. But she raised an eyebrow and she said, "That's ambitious." Yes, because she believed in me. But you may ask, how do I know? You know, after 50 years of passing out from school, not 50 years, I think around 40 years from passing out from school, I connected with her on Facebook. And she instantly remembered me. And she told me about the essay. She reminded me about the essay that I had written in school. And she said, I always knew you could do it. So dreams don't have to start big. They can start small. And if we don't dream, I don't think we will reach anywhere. So this was a ripple which I had created, and it was growing. The children laughed, but what I had at home was something fantastic. My parents, when I told them that I wanted to be a pilot, they supported me in every way. And they said, what you start, you must finish. And they supported me through my journey of becoming a pilot. And that's why my foundation, my support system, it was so strong. I could withstand the strongest of winds. So the small ripple started becoming bigger. The year was 1984, almost 41 years back. I joined Indian Airlines as its third woman airline pilot. From a young girl in Delhi to joining Indian Airlines as its third woman airline pilot was a long journey. One that was fraught with trials and tribulations, lots of difficulties, lots of currents, but I was here. In my batch, we were 14 pilots, and I was the only woman. At that time, it was not heard of that women wanted to be pilots. So men would say, do you think this profession is cut out for women? How will you manage your family? How will you look after your family? And I would just think. One senior captain came to me one day and he said, I don't think this profession is for girls. Another captain said, how long will you be able to continue? And the two of them spoke to each other and they said, well, another empty kitchen. I just smiled. I think in hindsight, I should have said, sir, the aircraft doesn't know about who is flying it. What matters is how is it flown. So yes, ripples will create turbulence. Ripples will definitely create turbulence. And that means change is happening. And we all know that change is the order of life. Unless there is no change, there is stagnation. So many years, and you know, Indore was one of my favorite cities I used to fly to. I was based in Bombay those days. So Bombay, Indore, Bhopal, Gwalior, Delhi, I would do a lot of flights. Indore had a very short runway. It was a difficult airport to land at, but I used to love it because it would take me from Bombay to Delhi to my hometown. And I was always happy coming here, flying the short sector from Indore to Bhopal, which was hardly a half an hour flight. And it was beautiful to fly those days. One day while I was flying, and I was very young, you know, at 26, I had become a captain, as one of you all introduced me. At 26, I had become a captain. So one passenger, as he was climbing up the step ladder, those days, there was no aero bridge. So he had to climb up the step ladder. He looked into the cockpit and he saw me flying. And he said, oh, is that a lady flying us? I want to get off. But he didn't get off. And we landed. The landing was super smooth. And guess what? Who clapped the loudest? The same passenger who wanted to get off. So many instances in my flying career where, you know, there were young girls who would see me sitting and they would tuck their mother's clothes and they would say, Mommy, is that a lady flying us? Wow. And mothers would come to the cockpit. Those days, everybody could come to the cockpit. This was before 9/11. Rules were not so strict. So they could come to the cockpit, they would talk to us, we would show them the instruments, we would tell them something about flying. And the mothers would come with their little daughters and sons and say, see, this auntie is flying a plane. Would you like to be a pilot like her? Yes, why not? And I know so many children who just by seeing us became pilots. So it's been a very tough journey, like I said, but one that is always full of satisfaction and fulfillment. When you do a job well, it gives you a lot of satisfaction and a lot of hard work is involved too. The year was 1990, many, many years back. And I clearly remember I was doing a flight from Jodhpur to Jaipur and the weather was very bad. So, you know, like ripples don't always happen in the day. Ripples are also created at night. This ripple happened at night when there was darkness outside and lightning all around, thunder, and there was radio silence inside the cockpit. We lost contact with the air traffic control. We couldn't talk to anybody. The weather was really bad. There was lashing rain, thunderstorms all around, and my co-pilot, he was a young boy, and he was very nervous. He froze on the controls. I had very few minutes to react. But I took charge, I took control, and navigating the weather, deviating around the thunderstorm, the clouds, we landed in very gusty winds, in rain, and when we landed, everybody was happy and there was clapping all around the aeroplane. At that time, I realized I had landed into a stronger version of myself. Fear doesn't, so somebody asked me, were you scared? So what do you think I said? Of course I was scared. Definitely I was scared. But being scared doesn't mean a loss of control. Fear is an invitation to rise higher, to see something which is higher than control. And I had landed into a different version, a stronger version of myself. So these ripples that were being created were becoming stronger and reaching further and further away as I was growing in my profession. So, well, as a pilot, I have flown so many different aeroplanes. Twin engine small Fokker Friendship, which was a 42-seater. Then I was a trainer. I was training pilots on the Boeing, not on the Boeing 737. I was a captain on the 737. Then I was a trainer check pilot on the Airbus 300, on the Airbus 330. I was an instructor on the Boeing 787. But you know what was the hardest part of my aviation career? Not flying. So what was it? It was balancing both wings, career and motherhood. Can you imagine a 2 a.m. arrival from an international flight, a sick toddler at home, and an 8 a.m. parent-teacher meeting at school? So what does one do? I landed straight from a flight and I reached my daughter's school for her fancy dress competition. And she was dressed like a fairy, and this is her. And she was dressed like a fairy. And she saw me and she came running to me. Mommy, you also flew today. Yes, I did. And in that moment, I had created a ripple. It taught my daughter that you don't have to choose. You can do both. Motherhood as well as a career. So we have to instill confidence in our children that we are capable of doing much more than what they think we can do. When I fly with a lot of boys, girls, different ages, and a lot of times, they've come and told me how they got into aviation. So there was this girl I flew with for the first time, a young cadet, and you know what she told me? She said, "Ma'am, I saw your picture in a magazine, and I cut it and I kept it in my diary. And that's how I have become a pilot." There was another girl who was a schoolgirl in Germany. They're Indian. Her father came to India and he saw the Savvy magazine where I was a cover girl. He carried the magazine to Frankfurt. She kept the magazine. I didn't know anything about this. And after many years, she flew. And she is now an airline pilot with Delta Airlines in the United States. This morning, my colleague from the gliding club sent me a message and said, good luck for your TEDx talk. And I said, I'm getting very nervous. So he said, good luck for your TEDx talk. And you know what? While we were gliding together, the instructor would tell us that be like Nivedita, fly like her. So I think, it was one photograph, one article, but it changed the lives of people. So it's very important that we share our story with youngsters like you, and it gives you ideas on what you can do with your lives. I'll tell you the truth. No one flies alone. Not in the cockpit, not at home, not in life. So when I fly, I have engineers, air traffic controllers, cabin crew, commercial staff, ground staff, all who support me. But they are not in the spotlight. But without them, the aircraft cannot take off or land. So we need a whole ecosystem around us to help us fly. And these are the silent ripples. They are there in the background, but they help the whole ecosystem to thrive and to grow together. In 1984, when I joined the airline, there were just 2 women pilots at that time. And men would say a lot of things, they would express a lot of doubts. Our uniform, it felt very heavy. Not because of the fabric that it was made of, but because of the expectations, because of the doubts, because of what the menfolk thought about us. But at that time, I didn't realize I had already dropped the Pebble. And it had transformed lives. It had changed families. And from only 2 in the airline, now India leads the way with 15% of women as airline pilots in the world. So isn't that a long way we have reached? Today, both my children are airline pilots. Not because I told them to be airline pilots, not because I told them that they should follow my profession, but because they saw us, they saw me. And the uniform did not represent a profession. It sent a message that mothers can be nurturers as well as navigators. And women can do a lot. And that's how my children followed my footsteps. So I would urge all of you to drop your Pebble and see where it lands, because you never know which ripple will become a wave. Thank you.